Hi folks, I've only got 8 slides, so I'm not going to bore you to death too much. As Martin said, last year we gave a presentation on how it went in Paris, and then what we're going to be doing in the future as well. I'm looking at some stuff we did this year, into 26, 27, 28. My planning is long-term planning. Because spectrum for some of these large events is not just a case of grabbing something off the shelf. We have to beg, borrow, steal, corrupt, blackmail, do anything we can to get it. So again, it's early 28, it's 4 years out planning for it. I'll talk about what we did this year. So this year there was the FIFA Club World Cup in the US, 14 stadiums. And we had 63 matches over a period of 6 weeks. Lots of spectrum planning. Worked with the FCC, NTIA who's here as well. We did a lot of coordination and it went really well. One of the key things on it for us was not to use spectrum. That's the big message I push to people. It sounds really crazy, but the less spectrum in use by certain organisations, the easier it is for actually to deliver the event. Okay. And I know this is sure, so forgive me, Rose. Wireless microphones is one of our biggest bugbears because we use a lot of wireless microphones in operations for shows and stuff, and we have a lot of EMGs, electronic music gathering feeds coming in. So we prioritise who we want to try and give spectrum to, and then we try and fit everybody else in all the other stuff. As you can see here, we actually adopted a policy for everyone, unless they had a very good reason to use a cable, all around the football pitch, everything was cabled up. Because when we came to the final match, we had a closing ceremony first, which was weird. We had a pre-match ceremony. We had the match itself, half-time show, as they copied Super Bowl. Then we had the second half. Then we had the presentation of the trophy with different elements of a show, with different companies running the show, different performers, so the high-level talent. So they were all mic'd up for different things, in-ear monitors and stuff. And we also had what we call stadium entertainment. So we still used lots of wireless mics, but it protected the show and the key elements of it. And if someone's doing a stand-up around the pitch before the match starts, really, 3 or 4 feet away from their kit, so they don't really need to waste some valuable spectrum there. And also where you get the guy in the white shirt, we get the mix zone where they do all the interviews and stuff. Again, they can just be cabled up. So we try and do as much as we can with not using spectrum. Doesn't mean we don't get interference in the cables from EMC. That's another issue that we're seeing lots more of now, is interference from other sources. Because of our measures that we took, and we were very harsh, this is the first mega event where we've actually enforced don't bring a mic for the ANGs. It reduced our spectrum applications dramatically. And it's also one of the first major events where everybody's been told to pay for their spectrum. It wasn't a free-for-all, and because we told people to pay for it through the different, in America it's through different spectrum coordinators, it reduced the amount of spectrum people grabbed. We didn't have people asking for 10 spare frequencies and stuff like that. Even then, we would still refuse. If they say the word spare, it gets automatically rejected anyway. So again, we kept it to the minimum that we could use to run the event. And because of that, we did really well in the 63 matches. We only had a couple of interference issues. The interference was self-generated by poor installation. So much so that one of the companies that caused it probably won't be allowed to put anything in the venues next year because the engineering was so poor. And we did well with the organising committees, the US Secret Service, because we had the President Trump for the final. Everything was coordinated from all the different levels down. We shared all the spectrum plans and everything, which was really good. And I can honestly say that I was scared going into America thinking, how are we going to organise this? How can we have all these agencies coming together And if you've ever been at an event where the president's at, the US Secret Service take over all the security, they man the gates, everything's bumped up. And we walked away with nothing, no problems whatsoever that day. But that was a lot of planning, a lot of work. NTIA, FCC, US Secret Service, local law enforcement, everybody. And we're really pleased that that worked, because going into next year and then going into 28, it gives me confidence that we have the structure for people to talk to each other. And people talking to each other is one of the biggest things. We can engineer the spectrum is all we want, but unless we'll talk to each other and play well. So interoperability is really good.
Yeah, John, I remember the numbers from last year for the Paris Olympic Games, both by you and also the NFL. I think Emmanuel Fosuri was here. Those numbers are not very, are small compared to. So for next year's, FIFA and then LA.
Well, next year our host broadcaster, they only did one stadium. Danzan did all the other ones this year. Next year HBS will do all the stadiums. They've got a set. It'll be the same basically kit between every venue. So there'll be so much wireless cameras, so many wireless microphones, decked, etc. Football stadiums don't use as much for the actual productions, but we will have shows, pre-shows and stuff like that. Where we see the big demand is the security companies, the catering companies, the ENG crews coming in. Also, we will have the world media there. So again, they'll want to bring a lot more kit as well. So going from a Club World Cup to something that's a country thing increases dramatically. But again, we will still push back on as much as we can, and it clears up the spectrum for us, because the biggest problem we have is noise floor. The noise floor at these events now is going up 20 to 30 dBs right across when everything's switched on, when you've got all the lights switched on, and so many people's radio systems. One of the things we'll be discussing for next year is, I know there's quite a few people on the call who listen to this bit, is we don't want local law enforcement coming along and throwing in a 50-watt 800 megs transmitter. They don't need 50 watts in that stadium, 5 or 10 watts. All they're doing is putting the noise floor up for us. So that's one of the things we have to look at, is keeping the noise floor down, less RF, but noise is created by lights. So many other things now is creating so much noise for us. So we were quite happy with those numbers. So if you see me in LinkedIn, I actually criticise companies who say, we did an event, we've used 700 frequencies in a day. And I'm like, well, you've not managed it. You've not used the word no. And it sounds brutal. The push that we have PMSA now, we can't fit everybody in. So something's got to give somewhere. We've got to start being that brutal and say, sorry, ENG crew, you're 4 feet apart, use a cable, do something different. Or we have to start looking at 1200 megs or something if possible. So, and it seems to be working.
On your table, what is the difference between cancelled and rejected?
Basically, we convinced them to cancel them before we rejected them.
Okay, thanks.
And when they actually apply for the Spectrum booking portal, because they just can't, we actually ask them what you're going to apply for, because there's no point of actually giving them access to log in and log stuff. And if they say, oh, we're going to do 6 ENGs, like, no, use a cable, you're not even getting allowed to. So again, it's that brutal. But as you can see, sir, we did allow quite a few wireless microphone frequencies to be used in your monitors. So it wasn't like a total no, but those were all for show critical, and it worked. So the show worked. It went out to live broadcast around the world, and we didn't have the problems. So to me, that was a big result. And again, we'll be doing it next year at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games in 2026. And hopefully we'll be doing the same thing in LA 28, especially LA. We just can't deal with 50,000 wireless mic applications. It's just not possible. I don't know if there's lots of digital TV there. Unless we get 700 megs and we get 1240 or something, which would be nice.
We've talked to Charles already a bit about 1240 to 1260. So
the Japanese love those bands, I tell you. So again, we took a really hard approach. We only had 60 instances of people doing things they shouldn't be doing. Our test and tag teams and spectrum teams, which we ran ourselves, stopped them. We proactively checked people as they came through security. We walked around and stopped. We test everything and put stickers on it. If you're using stuff, and not only once did we have to call security to someone, we will throw people out the venues. We will take their accreditation. There's no arguing with us when it comes to Spectrum. If anybody's causing problems to safety of life, we'll shut down our users straight away. You know, so we work closely with the FCC and stuff. So it's a different figure from Paris, and you'll see going on in the next few years, we're going to reduce it as well. And then we have the core spectrum that we need. Because there's when we actually monitor it, there's a lot of wastage. You know, there's a lot of licenses that people get and they don't use, because an ENG team might request a license for 43 venues, but they might only have people competing at 10 of them. So there's 30 venues, 33 venues they might never turn up at. There's a frequency been allocated, it's not been used because they don't get charged for it. It's amazing what happens when you start charging people for it. Now, here's something we did do. And I did consult with someone on the phone who's listening. Hello, Henry. Henry Cohen helped us a lot from CP Communications this year, and Henry will help me a lot next year. FIFA deployed 5G for ref cams. As you can see there, somebody posted, it's pretty insane. It is. We stuck a 5G belt pack on a referee, stuck a small camera on the side of his head, and they can run around and see the pictures from the field of play. It's being used in the Dundas League, and now we will use it next year at every stadium. That was on our sponsor, Verizon's CBRS, and it worked pretty well because you're getting a shot of where the referee's looking at. They tested ones that was on the body, but as the referee looked over to the right, you couldn't see it. So it's on the side of the head. We did have to do a remote shutdown because, sometimes the referee forgot to turn it off. He's looking at his phone and texting his wife. There's some really good outtakes, but I don't think they'll ever get published. But that was a game changer, actually doing that on the field of play for referees. It brought the fans straight into it. And for the VARs, for any infringements and stuff, or things where the players are running up to the referee or the referee seeing the angle, it's really, really good. You're getting straight on that field of play. The quality needs to improve, which it will do for next year. But it's a really, really neat system. Yes, sir.
When did you say that was in CBRS band?
Verizon's the main sponsor. Verizon's got it at all the NFL stadiums, so we used it. The only thing is they need to put the antennas higher up and things. And then in the final match, someone changed all the screen. So when you look at a venue, they've got all this, like you had in Paris, you had the purple cloth. Someone at MetLife Stadium, New Jersey, they put new screen up, which was thick plastic right over all. So we went round with a Stanley knife in the final just an hour before and cut around it so we could show the antenna, show the base stations. It was a big problem for us. But again, it was a brilliant use case of private 5G and CBRS, and the fans liked it as well because you're getting right into the game. And also, now you can put it in someone's head. What else can you use it for apart from sport? So again, it's innovation. And it was only 2 base stations because you're only trying to cover there. We'll actually put a third one in the tunnel. So when the referee is walking out, you can see that. Really neat stuff. And we didn't have any interference on it. It was actually pretty good. Keeping it on the side of the referee's head was quite interesting. So the way ahead, in the next few years, there's some really major events going on. We get Miko, which is the Winter Olympics in Italy. Then we've got Glasgow Commonwealth Games. We get the FIFA World Cup. We get the FIFA Women's World Cup in Brazil. No doubt we'll be using the cameras there as well. Then we get LA 28 Olympics. And then you get the UEFA 28 in the UK. So these large sporting events are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't see them. I don't see broadcasts don't want to do it. We live broadcast everything now, and the big thing now is video streaming. So the terrestrial numbers are falling, but the video streaming is going crazy. Because if you're in America and your favorite football team is Brazil, You only want to watch the Brazilian matches. Before, if you're in America, you wouldn't be able to watch the Brazilian matches because Fox wouldn't show the Brazilian matches unless they were playing Team USA. Now you can go online and stream what you want. So streaming is the big thing now. So again, there's more hours of streaming. So video or RF becomes more important now because the broadcast is important. It generates the revenue. People want to watch it. Unfortunately, I'm involved in quite a few of those things. I'm going to be busy. I'll retire one of these years. I don't know when. The demands are growing across all the spectrum bands. We're seeing a lot more ultra wideband on 4 gigs, the top end of 7, and in 6.5. Now, ultra wideband technology is used in quite a few sports. It's used for athletes and for footballers. They're athletes as well. They wear a vest. The vest sends back telemetry, so they can track their heart rate, the position in the pitch, loads of other biometrics as well. When you're doing athletics for Glasgow next year, instead of having like a little copper strip in the track as they go around the athletics track, they wear a wearable tag now, and there's about 20 antennas. So as they're running around, the ultra wideband gives a 3D image of where they are on that track and timing. So ultra wideband is now becoming that popular, but unfortunately 6 gigs, we try and stay away from it. In the US or football, I think I told you last year, inside the football's got a ultra wideband transmitter. So when the football's getting kicked around the field of play, for all the Americans on the line, it's proper football, not yours. I have this argument all the time. And there's antennas all around the stadium to actually show where that ball is at every part of the time, and the ball's got a USB port on it to charge it. So it's a pretty good use. The good thing is it does more than one band now. So we used 4 gigs in the States this year for it, which is good because we can do 4, the top end of 7, or 6.5. We couldn't use 6.5 because of downlinks from police helicopters and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff in there on the 6.
Power tends to be low, correct? And the range?
Oh yeah, the power is low, but again, we just want to, we don't want any interference to that. You know, if you've got a police helicopter, it's got a downlink to the stadium for security cameras and stuff. We don't want him knocking out our antennas that are in the roof, and also it makes them feel happy if we're not on the same band. So we have chances of moving, and that's where the coordination piece comes in, you know, between all of us and all the different agencies.
Is this ultra wideband only used for tracking or also for data?
Well, it's data. So whatever,
And tracking.
yeah, it's just for tracking and data for whatever the users are sending back on it. So, but we're seeing more of it being used on the sports as well. Connexon and some of the others are really big in doing this sort of stuff. But as we've said to them, keep making your equipment agile. Don't make it that can only do one band. If you can only do one band, you're probably going to get told no. You want to do at least 2 or 3 bands in case there's a problem. Challenges in 6 gigs, let's say ultra wideband and people using Wi-Fi up to 7.125 gigs was an issue for us. And DEC spectrum is, we use a lot of DEC belt packs. Instead of using UHF radios, we use DEC belt packs. DEC in America, we've only got 10 megs. Luckily, we managed to find another 5. And then also we were given last minute verbal permission to extend slightly. And that was the good thing about working with the FCC. They were really flexible in certain things. Whereas in Europe, we've got a bit more spectrum available. If we didn't use the DEC, then we'd have to go back to the old way and use more PMR, or LMR, UHF frequencies. So, you know, it starts causing us grief. And everybody's used to using it. But again, we manage it with, you know, at the final, we had a maximum of 73 belt packs. The referees use DEC for the comms. So again, we have to coordinate between closing ceremony, all the different parts of it, and say, right, you can switch yours on, yours off. Next year, we're going to have one big network where we have full control of all the DEC belt packs. So we try and squeeze as much as we can in to that bit. Increases in private 5G. So again, we've seen this year with private 5G. Commonwealth Games next year, probably a private 5G as well by our supplier. If they want to come and showcase, because our network supplier will be announced very shortly. And if they want to come and do private 5G with the kit they've got, because they've already got a lot of that they're deploying around the world. More license exempt. Now, Henry's in the call. Henry Cohen, when I told him that license exempt is the biggest pain for me at any events, Henry thought I was joking. And I can imagine Henry laughing and falling off his chair at the other end. He changed his views considerably. 900 megs. So in Europe, we use 800 megs for a lot of telemetry. So any of our short range devices is usually 800 megs. In the US, we don't use 800 megs for that. There is spectrum available, but you know, there's a lot of other agencies and stuff using high-powered kit on 800 megs. So what we did was we took the decision to stay away from 800 megs and go to 900 megs. We started looking at, right, how much do we have to play? Who's going to be on it? When someone scores a goal, there's a system that sends a signal to the referee's watch, which is on 900 megs, and it beeps. We also found that the Amazon pop-up stores in the venues use 900 megs for their RFIDs. Rose Bowl in California used 900 megs in the Bavarian sausage restaurant when you buy plates of food. So yeah, we had to sort of like figure out, again, looking at where the restaurants were, looking at where the antennas were, would that cause us problems to the field of play? If we caused them problems, we didn't care. I know that sounds brutal, but you know, end of the day, they can do with us a sausage for a day. So we had to look at that, and then we had to coordinate some of the other 900 megs users as well and keep people apart. License exempt is a big thing, because for me, there's no such thing as license exempt at these events. Same with Wi-Fi, we allocate the channels. We don't allow anybody to go more than 20 megs because we've got other users who want to bring kit in for special stuff. We're starting to see some point-to-point stuff in 60 gigs, which is really good. Before teams would bring in to do video analysis, they would want to do a couple of 5G channels, not private, you know, 5 gigs just to link. And some of them now bringing in little 60 gig stuff, which I'm really happy with, because it means we're not wasting good Wi-Fi channels to create links. Challenges. Regulators, I'm sorry, some of you don't really understand PMSE. You need to get out there and go to the events and come and see what we do. Actually, I don't know who's on, but Sean Cochrane, Ira Kelps, and Mike Rhodes, all from the FCC, went to Paris, and they had a big light bulb moment of, this is really big, it's really different. And, you know, we've got, and this year, some of their guys went out to some of the matches as well and seen things. It's one thing sitting behind the desk making regulations, but the impact of the regulations and what's going on out there in the real world is two different things. So I've got to go out and see it and speak and see what's happening. And it's one of the biggest things. And I'm all for regulators and people coming. Next year, we're going to have Ofcom at Commonwealth Games. Craig and his team will be up. The guys are brilliant. And it's been really good to see other people coming along, maybe have some technology, open days and stuff to show people what we're trying to achieve. Because it's not only the sport, it's the sports production, it's the ceremonies, it's everything that's involved in it. Technology plays a massive big part in these events now. Demise of PMSC spectrum across the world. It's happening everywhere. You know, 450 megs alliance. I don't think they like me very much. I think they're going to end up going 450 to 500 meg alliance. I don't trust that alliance. I think they'll keep on wanting to grab more and more and more and more. What they promised is they would stay down at this bit, but you can see it will go, because 400 megs in LTE is a brilliant band. But how far will they go? Will they want to get those 8 meg gaps in between the TVs or not? So again, that's something we've got to face in future.
And you know, and then you have obviously the mobile operators, you know, 600 megahertz, and then I think tomorrow Wolfgang's going to talk about Germany, which military there in Germany are interested in 470 to 694.
So I'm quite vocal about a lot of these things, because again, I think they all say they want to play in harmony, but a lot of them really don't care about what we try and do is on the PMSE side. Demand increasing, the demand for spectrum is increasing right across the board. Licenses in, like I said, is really busy. Like you were saying, the LTE want more stuff. Everybody wants more and more and more. And we're now way into the mic, Millie, you know, how far can we go? How far can the industry take it? Go? And how much can we push onto private 5G? Because it's not being taken up as much as it should be. You know, we should be doing more in that band. So that's our challenges and stuff. If anybody's got any sort of questions, I know it's quite high level what I went over. One thing is going forward in the US for 26 and 28, we're way ahead of the planning. We're working with some great partners over there from the different agencies. And I'm not saying it because man's here from NTIA, and we meet every 3 months in Washington. So it's face-to-face meetings. We bring in the people that we need to discuss different parts of it. Even NASA came to one of the meetings. There's so many different organizations that's involved in it. And it's great to see that level, and they're getting to understand what we require. So for the next few years, I'm quite happy where we're going with a lot of this stuff. It's just we're trying to keep hold of all the spectrum we've got.
So John, for the FIFA, football World Cup next year, when do you need to have the spectrum planning done? First question. Second, are you asking for bands like the 608 to 614, for example, the radio astronomy channel? Are you asking for 1.2 gigahertz? You're asking for all of this, or you don't need that?
We've not seen our STA, have you? Yeah, we asked for a lot, and we'll see what we can use. And we start opening the portal this year for the applications coming in. LA, we've just got what's called an STA, Special Temporary Authority. It's on the PLMR, so it's the UHF side of things and VHF on radio. That's been published, and I can say that the FCC's waived a lot of restrictions. The amount of waivers that's on our STA is probably unheard of before, because of the amount of spectrum that we'll probably need. Then we'll sit down with our colleagues at NTIA at some point and start going through their big list of lovely spectrum they've got. But again, we won't abuse it. We'll work together on it. And then all the different regulatory bodies where we can get other spectrum coming in, we're speaking to, and even down to amateur radio bands and stuff. We'll speak to everybody. Anybody can give us spectrum alone, is it? And we're finding a lot of people get over there. Nobody's said no yet. We know there's gaps we can maybe ask for, but because we're trying to push back on some of the wireless mics, but the 1200 would be good to try and get as well. And we'll ask that question, because we can do it through we'll probably do quite a lot through Iris, probably online, extraordinary licensing, experimental licensing as well. So that whole framework seems to work quite well, because in the US they don't have PMSC licensing. PMSC doesn't exist as such. There's ways of working it and working with their coordinators like Henry Cohen and stuff to make it all work. Yes, sir.
No. There is the BAS band.
Well, but I'm saying that's the thing. So we've got.
It's like they use it like a PSME, and that's co-owned. That's with DOD.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So we have to speak to different parts of it. If you go to an FCC meeting, half the people at the meeting are lawyers, and you've got the Wireless Bureau. Then there's so many different parts of the bureau that's split into different bits. And then from that, you've also got the people who do they do the aircraft uplinks and downlinks. We had them at the last meeting.
Aeronautical mobile telemetry.
Yeah, so there's loads of different folks we bring in for different parts of it, and that's why we do the face-to-face meetings, so we can discuss it all. So the first thing we've done is get the STA out for the PLMR. NTIA stuff will be done separately, won't be an STA. That STA will come through the FCC, but we'll discuss it all before and get it all worked out that we know what we're applying for before the 23 different agencies review it and then reject it. Yeah, because when we send it today, guys, to FCC, to NTIA, they then send it to 23 different agencies. They look at it, and then we're blocking out loads of their spectrum, and hopefully we're going to get it before they realise they need it for 28. Fingers crossed. So you can see there's a lot of regulatory and a lot of stuff that needs to be done, but I'm really happy the way it's going over there at the moment. And because we're dealing with the same teams that's doing the World Cup and LA28, it's making it a lot easier. They've learned a lot. And you can see by the STAs to get the amount of waivers we've got, it's really unheard of. Any other questions, guys? Or yes, sir.
So the World Cup would be in Canada and Mexico.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about US. I understand why. I don't think we have any Mexican government representative here, but just can you share the difference, how it works with Mexico, for example, versus US?
Mexico said to us, what do you want to do, and tell us. So we're working with them in that, and they're giving us chunks of spectrum that we can allocate, which is pretty good for us. And they've gave me 20 megs of deck spectrum, which I'm really happy with. Canada is Canada. I don't know if you ever dealt with Canada. Canada is whatever the ISCD, whatever they call themselves. Yeah, the guy remembers me from 2015, unfortunately, from Toronto Pan Am Games. Yeah, Canada, we're doing the same sort of thing under their regulations. We're using the same company to help us with their. So what we'll do is we'll open our portal, we'll take all the applications in, we'll vet them to see whether we're going to put them forward. Then our companies helping us get the licenses will go to the different countries and sort them out. Canada's a bit more laid back in certain things. We've only got 2 stadiums, but we've got an opening ceremony in Toronto as well that we have to sort of sort out. So, and we've got the 5G to do, and we've got DECT, because Canada doesn't have DECT. I don't know if you know that, but there's no DECT in Canada as such. We use DECT at Formula 1, so we're in discussions with them. Again, it's friendly discussions with the Canadians because they never argue.
And one question I always get is, why is Show involved in spectrum? And these are the reasons why, right? I mean, the demand is increasing, spectrum is decreasing.
Yeah.
We need, and then you need to educate. I mean, we met with Charles a couple of weeks ago. We have CC all the time. We have Ofcom, etc. So, we're doing our part, at least trying. But it would be good if we have more from our community, like yourself, Henry, and others involved. I think we're going to discuss a bit of that tomorrow during Martin's presentations.
It's really important because as I travel around the world, I see how different regulators in different parts of the world do things, and some of it's not aligned, and we see it with the equipment as well. We're banning certain types of equipment. There's one microphone, I know Henry doesn't like it at all because we know it's spurious. So we won't even allow people to, we'll knock them. It's not Shure, by the way, and it's not Sennheiser. And there is other microphones out there you can purchase. And the other things is we're not going to allow the 2.4 gigs mics, because if we're banning mics for ENGs, we're not going to allow other ENGs bringing 2.4 in, because when it comes to LA, we use a lot of 2.4 gigs for critical systems for results and timing. Why you put a critical system in 2.4 gigs, I don't know. But again, so we're trying to play fair with everyone. It's the same with the US is really strict on certain other kit that we're telling people not to bring, and understandably wise with some of it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I heard from some folks engaged with LA that they're going to be flying people around in drones to beat the traffic, 2-seater maybe.
They tried that. They were going to try that in Paris until the guy asked for spectrum, and we'd used it all. So it's going to be interesting in LA what spectrum they're going to use for that.
Well, that's my question to you. If you've heard about that, and then what spectrum they're going to use, and what they're going to.
They've come on as a sponsor, so that's going to be an interesting one. So yeah, because in Paris, when the company applied, and they applied for the 2 gig spectrum for it, which they needed, we used every single bit of 2 gigs there was in Paris. Mostly because of that opening ceremony along the river. But again, it's going to be a big thing for us in LA. How do we manage some of the other demands that's going to be there? The main thing is to push the broadcasters up onto 7 and try and get them to use 7. Tell them not to use 20 megs, but use 14. They can go down to 16 and they'll still get good 16 meg channels. They still get good quality. Remove the guard bands, tell them to fit filters, tell them not to put the antennas up high. So there's a lot of engineering work. Like you'd said before, engineering is crucial. It's the same with the CBRS. If you've got below 6 meters, you can get more out of it. So we're telling a lot of people you've got to have good engineering. And if you want to make certain things work and you want it, prove to us the concept. We're going to, T-Mobile is now our official supplier for LA. So you can guarantee there's going to be 5G splicing and lots of 5G out there, a hell of a lot of it. So that's going to be interesting as well.
Thanks, John.
Okay.